This is Lisa Marie Smith. She has been performing in Las Vegas for many years, headlining at the Mayfair Supper Club and starring in shows such as Pin Up and Baz, while also starting her own project as the lead singer for the LMS band. When given the chance to interview her, we asked two important questions. Who are some of your female musical inspirations from the 60s, and how have they paved the way for you and other performers today? And this is what she said.
The 60s were so empowering for women in general, let alone women in music. The 60s was the first time, honestly, that the female body was um, rejoiced, if you will, because women like Cher became very, very popular in the 60s. She wasn't necessarily well liked by men in the 60s, but she was adored by women. And she is incredibly inspiring and empowering to me because she was unapologetically her, physically as well as with how she spoke in public. Women finally became um, not just vocalists, but they were able to become like public speakers and public figures and role models for women. And she's Armenian, so for me personally, that was like a somebody that I'm inspired by with her career. So that's one, but that's just one side of it. There's also women like Nina Simone and Etta James who were the epitome, especially in the African American culture, of goddesses, like jazz and soul queens, and they were celebrated for their talent and nothing about their physical appearance. So, on one end, we had the women who were embraced with that sort of thing and had kind of that icon that people like Madonna and Britney Spears were able to focus on. That was the Chers. And then there were the Nina Simone's and Etta James's, who were entirely focused on the nuance and the musicality of the voice. And that was not necessarily celebrated to that depth until women like that, which inspired the women like Aretha Franklin, which was another super powerful woman in that era. And she inspired me, obviously, because she's the queen. Um, and she did things with her voice with runs and trills and riffs that were not done until her. They were done in more of a jazz style, like Nina Simone and Etta and that. So Aretha took that and added a bit of a rock and roll and a soul R&B edge to it, similar to Tina Turner, who's also a famous 60s singer. There's so many. And then the last two, so we had the female icon of the physical appearance and the empowering appearance. Then we have the women who took musicianship from horns and jazz and incorporated it into singing. And then we had the rockers and the soul empowering women like Aretha and Tina Turner. And then the last two are more of the Broadway style, and that was Barbra Streisand, Babs, and Shirley Bassey. Shirley Bassey wasn't necessarily a Broadway inspiration for me, but she was theatrical. And when you go and you watch her performances, particularly back then, everything was so grand and dramatic. And that was really, really new in that era and that style. She was the original James Bond singer. Goldfinger and all of those songs. That's her. She started that entire like power of the female voice, and that theatrics, that over the top theatrics that she's so good at, and her voice was just all belt. She was like known for being a straight up Caucasian belter, and that wasn't super common back then either. And then Barbra Streisand was all about nuance, and she brought the Broadway element to mainstream pop, and that's why she was important and empowering to me. So that's four different ranges of women. Then we also have Joni Mitchell and all kinds of folk singers. I mean, I can go on and on about the 60s, but those four different sections are a really good explanation of how impactful that decade was for female vocalists and just music in general, and how it affects all of the performers today.